teeth. Plastic skins for the unbelief. Eyes low, then it's no grief. Locked in this minor key.
I feel like the music I make is trying to piece together lots of different sounds, and it's like this sort of constant exploration of how I might be able to do that.
Our songs kind of define themselves. Our music's very different song to song, I feel. So it's difficult to describe our sound, with a thing like saying like the genre of this. Our music's a certain genre, I'd say. Yeah, the songs kind of form themselves, and then afterwards we kind of look back and kind of, the song presents itself to us.
I guess the best way to describe it would be like a sort of exploration of lots of different kinds of music.
See, what's really cool about it is often, we tend to get very different answers from everyone. And I think what it shows is actually there's just like lots of different sides to the music that we're making. And actually what's really interesting is that's probably what you like about it, And I think when you're making something that's maybe like a little bit more niche, it allows that kind of conversation to happen in a way. Like what do you see in the work? And I think that's interesting, right?
What's typical of a lot of the people we work with, they're just people that have to get the music inside them out. They're driven to do it. They're not looking to jump on a wave or follow a trend or anything. They're just people who are just like creative people in any other field. They have to get it out of the system, and they're making music for themselves and hoping to find an audience, and I think that's the best way to do it.
All the developments you see in kind of music and I guess the culture surrounding music, it all starts off underground somewhere and gradually filters into the more kind of, I don't want to use the word mainstream because that's kind of pejorative, but the more commercially, I guess, viable or larger stuff. But without the grassroots scene, you wouldn't have all this experimentation. Artists can take risks on it a lot more than they can when they're sort of maybe constrained by more commercial, not just labels per se, but just more commercial pressures, because there's lots of great small labels that let artists do whatever they want, and I think that's what we try and do as well. Like, we're not like, oh, you need to change this to fit this. If somebody wants to release music on us and it's vaguely electronic, we'll do what we can to make that happen. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's just labels per se, but there are pressures that come on the kind of more commercial end of things, which you don't have so much on the grassroots, and people can take risks.
We often will just like find a sound that we like, or maybe it's like some drums or something, and then that's just going, that's looping, and then someone will jump in and... every song's different, as I'm sure you'll hear from many artists. Well, a lot of the like studio sessions we have, we'll be sitting around and we'll kind of have a drum loop just to start off with. Maybe have that just play for 2 hours constantly in the room, and we'll just be there, and it'll jump in, need a bit of guitar, we'll play a bit of guitar, add that in, need a bit of synth. Someone gets an idea, pulls out a xylophone or something, and you've got for 2 hours just this noise going around and around and around, and then we'll just listen to that, and then maybe go, okay, let's start again, do something completely different. And then maybe do that a few times, and then you get an idea of kind of some idea emerges from that, and you can stitch them ideas together and turn it into something completely new. But structure emerges and stuff like that.
Because of how I write, I don't tend to have an end goal in mind for a song when I start making it. It kind of builds in a sort of collage way. So I'll kind of be adding sounds, and then I'll add one and be like, that's not right, take that out. And kind of what I end up with is a sort of, is a thing that makes sense to me sonically, but it's not necessarily like intentional.
A big part of it is like who is there and when we're doing it. Like if we're doing it on an afternoon and it's a nice sunny day and our friend John's there, it's going to be very different than if it's 2 a.m. and with 4 pints deep and Mark's there,
And again, that plays into the whole expressionist thing. It's like at 2 a.m. you make definitely different music to you do at 1 in the afternoon on a sunny day.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It's very, we're exploring. It's all about exploring and finding, it's like a mystery to us, and that's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
Do you think genre is important?
I think it can be a useful tool if somebody wants to kind of describe what they're doing or kind of contextualize themselves, like understand where they're kind of fitting, what they want to make and stuff. But I also think it's a really unhelpful thing quite a lot of the time, because if you get too bogged down in like what genre you are, then you start making decisions based on what genre you are, or like what bands are in that genre, rather than like, oh, this sounds cool, you know, this could be interesting. You'd be like, oh, but that's a bit too rocky for my electronic pop track. Like it's, yeah. So I think it can be helpful, but I think it's, yeah, not everything.
Genre is a fallacy, and it's very much a capitalist structure. It's to sell records in a record shop. And what we know from music history is that everything feeds into itself, into its own. That's wonderful. People are like, I do this, I do this, I do this. But I get asked, like, how do you DJ? What do you DJ? What genres? And then you just start reeling off. Because actually I'm interested in music, I'm interested in the energy in the music, I'm interested in the atmosphere of the party, or if it's for the radio, or if it's on for TV, or whatever. Yes, I'm interested in specific instruments, I'm interested in specific scenes, that perhaps certain practices have come from, but I'm much more interested in bringing things together and the overall energy and effect of something, whether that's in programming or whether that's writing music and theatre, film, my own album, my own solo work, or even when I'm sharing in workshops and teaching. It's more about how and what the artist's doing and why. For me, that's what I love.
It's important for finding music and like categorizing music, but I think to be thinking about it in making music, it's a limitation on your creativity. Like to say I make this is to say I don't make that, and that's not something that we really want to say.
Like everything overlaps in Newcastle, which I think is probably why it's been a good place to do TUSK, because people aren't that interested in genre boundaries, and they want to kind of just make music however they want to make it.
I mean, there's always been a strong music scene in the Northeast. I mean, that's obviously where we all got started, and like myself, because I've been in bands since I was about 16, and been gigging since I was about 17, quite regularly and stuff. But I think what I've noticed, I guess, is there has been a more diversifying of kind of genres on the scene. I mean, perhaps it's because I started off in kind of Sunderland, which is very dominated with kind of like indie music, which is, you know, all fine. I guess indie in inverted commas, because that's a very broad kind of terminology, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sort of more rock driven, I guess, I think is probably the best way to describe it. But like, just over the last few years, it's diversified so much, and there's just lots more genres and different styles of music happening, and little micro scenes splitting off here and there and everywhere, which is really nice to see.
The wide variety and the closeness of the scenes up in the Northeast are really special. So it's interesting we're talking about genre and how do we define, because actually it feels to me that the more independent scenes, the more DIY artists do come together and supersede genre. It's this bringing and mixing together of people from what would be pigeonholed as scenes and genres together in this wonderful pick and mix is actually what makes us so unique here in the Northeast.
I think our scene is so good and like supportive and exciting and like really thriving for like in lots of different ways. I think the thing I would hope for would be more external recognition of that. I think people kind of forget that we've got so much going on, or they just like don't know we've got so much going on. It would be really cool to see the scene kind of lifted up as like an example of a scene that's very supportive within itself and very like kind of collaborative and like fun and yeah, interesting.
Every artist is defined by their own limitations, right? So we're two guys, we're not in like a band with loads of people, so we work in a way that's like, you know, we're limited by that in terms of what we can do, and you know, we're not funded by a record label, so we're limited by that. And actually these all come together to actually like form like why we do these things. And I think every artist has their own reason to do these things, and for everyone it's different.
Yeah, the best way to answer that is just by explaining what we do, isn't it, really? Just the extreme kind of DIY approach we've had for the past 5 years of literally everything yourself and see what comes of it.
That's it,
pretty much.
That's it. Like, if you do it by yourself, like the original way, like the interesting methodology will just come as part of that, I think.
Do what you love, do what you're passionate about, and hopefully, you know, that'll translate into, you know, the scene around you, or like organic fan base sort of building up. Also make use of the resources we have in the North East. So obviously you guys, NARC magazine, and your various different kind of I guess NARC TV and all that sort of stuff. Really great for artists, really help us, you know, look at the local venues, places like Little Bills like we're in right now. They're great for artists when they're first starting out, and just kind of have a clear, I guess, idea of what you want to do. do what you really want to do what you love. Don't try and fit in the boxes, but obviously make yourself familiar with the scene around you and use the resources that are there, because they are there. They're just maybe not always that obvious.
I would say like, I know I keep saying the word like play, but just like be really playful. I think that's the like thing that's really exciting for me, and that is the most experimental thing you can do, is not try and sound like something else, is to just be like, what would happen if I did this? Like, what would happen if I did this? Like, approaching it in a really playful way, I think, is the best way to make something that like sounds a bit weird or stands out or is like kind of, like unique to you and your like perspective. I would say like just play around with stuff, and also like ask people what they do, ask people about their processes. Everyone's loves talking about how they make music. Like, ask people what they do, and identify what you like about certain other people's work. And
I want to see diversity that's applied. I don't want to see people talking, and I don't want to see words in print. I want to see it demonstrated. I want the money on the table, and I want to see proof of the pudding. I want to see people take risk. We've been doing this for a long time in our scene. It pays off, not financially, it pays off for the community. The scene you're talking about exists because of the risks that were taken by people who were not into this to make money. You're not making money as a promoter in the northeast of England. Ask any and every promoter, whether it's the large venues or the small promoter with the gigs that are in pubs, and that's because the pub's giving them 100 quid and a free bar tab for their 2 artists. Whatever that scenario is, this is not a profitable place. It's not a profitable place to live. It needs support. I want to see more women. I want to see more non-binary. I want to see more diverse heritages. I want to see people who identify however they want to identify. And I also want to see all of those things together at the same time. I'm very tired of seeing pigeonholing. It's important we have those spaces. We have safe spaces for female, non-binary, femme identifying. It's important we have spaces for LGBTQIA plus communities. It's important we have spaces for people from different heritages. And it is important we have intersectional spaces where everybody who is all of those things can come together and be safe. That is what I want to see in the Northeast. It's what we wanted before pandemic. It's what we need to see now more than ever. We've come out of the pandemic and not everyone has been supported. The community is fractured. The DIY is fractured. And we need to see people who have the money and don't know how to spend the money, instead of buying themselves another office chair because they're sitting in an office all day and not actually doing the gigs, to actually put it onto the artists who are part of a community and to help build the community. So we need risk, and we need people to accept that actually taking risk, it costs money and it takes time, and it will build into something better and more beautiful.